Great British Manufacturing Podcast, brought to you by MTD, MFG and Jefferson.
Hello and welcome to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. On this week's show we will discuss the latest positive British manufacturing news from the last 7 days and introduce a special guest, who is Michael Gibbs, the Managing Director of Lesjöfors, Heavy Springs. But before we do, let's have a little bit of a chat about Factory Now. The Factory Now initiative has been launched to help British manufacturing sector boost sales, collaborate and reshore. News stories and articles from members are constantly added to the site. For this week, for example, Factory Now member Catax has secured more than £600,000 worth of R&D tax breaks for Telford-based Aviram. More on this can be found at mtdmfg.com/Factory Now. Stuart, welcome to the podcast. It's going to be another good one by the looks of things.
Absolutely. Good mix today, Joe. We've got motorbikes, cars, aerospace, packaging, even shipbuilding. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Yeah, quite. Let's get on with it. Triumph, obviously we all know of Triumph, or we should do. They're expanding their production facility, aren't they?
Yes, they are set to more than triple the number of motorcycles it builds in the UK. British manufacturing is investing in new facilities, creating new jobs at its Hinckley headquarters to support the ramp-up in production. The new facility will be able to assemble bikes from across Triumph's range, with production targeted at the British and European markets. And this investment comes a couple of years after Britain's biggest bike maker reduced its domestic output by 3,000 from 7,500 to 4,500. So, great boost for the firm's aims of maintaining its production base in the UK. When running at full capacity, 15 to 20,000 motorcycles a year will be built at Leicestershire site.
Vauxhall, they're set to expand the Ellesmere Port site in Cheshire.
Yeah, they've submitted plans to build a new facility at its Ellesmere Port plant. The car maker, which employs more than 1,000 people at the factory, describes the proposed building as a purpose-built European facility for the distribution of its vehicle parts. And as we recorded on the podcast last year, the Stellantis, the parent company of Vauxhall, announced a £100 million investment programme to convert the site into Europe's first dedicated electric vehicle plant, which ended years of uncertainty over the future of the factory. Production of the Astra ceases in April as Vauxhall makes the transition to manufacturing electric vans.
Yeah, staying on an automotive theme, Aston Martin, they're on the show from time to time, but Britishvolt, they seem to be on all the time, and they've got a collaboration at the moment.
Yeah, this follows Britishvolt's collaboration with Lotus that we covered in the podcast a couple of weeks ago. So Aston Martin is continuing its journey to electrification with an agreement to develop bespoke high-performance battery cell technology with Britishvolt. The collaboration, formalised in a memorandum of understanding, will further support Aston Martin's plans to launch its first battery electric vehicle in 2025. A joint R&D team from Aston Martin and Britishvolt will design, develop and industrialise battery packs, including bespoke modules and a battery management system. And as we covered, I think last week or a couple of weeks ago, Aston Martin recently announced plans to create more than 100 jobs at its plant in St Athan, and Britishvolt, as we all know, is building a new multi-billion-pound factory in Northumberland.
Yep, good collaboration, I'm sure. The next one, GS Yazda, the beginning construction of a new headquarters and distribution centre here in the UK.
Yeah, good investment news. So the Japanese-owned battery manufacturer has broken ground on a 178,000 square foot purpose-built facility in Swindon, Wiltshire. The new site will stock batteries and accessories to service all the firm's many markets, including automotive, motorcycle and industrial applications, for which it is the UK market leader. We'll have approximately 23,000 pallet spaces and stock hundreds of thousands of batteries to supply into the UK and European markets. Site build is scheduled to be completed by the end of the year, and the facility is expected to be fully operational by next summer.
Okay, we'll take a brief pause from this week's positive UK manufacturing news and introduce this week's guest, who is Michael Gibbs, the Managing Director of Lesjöfors Heavy Springs. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Hi, morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, just before we get on with formalities, we'd like to learn a little bit about you. So, what's your current role and responsibilities in your career to date?
So I'm the Managing Director of a company called Lesjöfors Heavy Springs UK in Cornwall. I originally trained as a mechanical engineer from Exeter University, and then I went on to do the graduate training scheme at Rolls-Royce up in Bristol, which was fantastic, great experience, and did a lot of training up there. Then thought I was going to sort of continue my career in aerospace engineering and became a turbine designer for the Eurofighter, actually. And then an opportunity came along for a sort of like a consultancy, really, a 2-year placement for a struggling company down in Cornwall. And that's how I ended up down here. There was a company really that needed some help, and I thought this sounds like a great project. And at the same time, I was able to get a business degree through Kingston University by doing that project. And that's how I ended up down at Lesjöfors Heavy Springs UK in Cornwall.
Yeah, and Nick, if you can tell us a little bit about the company, about Lesjöfors, that'd be great.
Yeah, no problem. So Lesjöfors AB is a big group. It's Swedish, ultimately owned by a company called Bear Armour, which is on the Swedish Stock Exchange. We have about 50 sites around the world, both manufacturing and sales. Sales of about 300 million euros last year, and growing every year. And essentially what brings us all together is we manufacture products from wire and strip, so springs, or conventional springs as you would know it, strip work, press work. We also do gas springs. So anything that's really about storing energy and movement, we're involved in it.
Morning, Mike. It's Stuart. Thanks for joining us today. Fascinating to hear about your background and involvement in the Eurofighter project. You've obviously recently established a new company and rebranded 2 factories in Cornwall. Will you just give us some background to this, the reason for this, the associated investment, advantages, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, so essentially we were part of the Lesjöfors group, but we were part of a separate company that was based in Cornwall and in London. And our London office was manufacturing press work predominantly and small wire coiling. And in Cornwall, we do the bigger stuff. So we actually manufacture springs from 3 millimeters and above. And it kind of was felt that we actually have more affiliation with some of the other sites in Lesjöfors, predominantly in Sweden and Finland, who do some of the bigger coiling. So the decision was made to sort of demerge the company, create a separate company down in Cornwall, and then create a separate group within the group with us and our Swedish and Finnish partners, to create a sort of expertise area within the group about heavy coiling. And so we then rebranded as Lesjöfors Heavy Springs UK, and there's talk that they may then become Lesjöfors Heavy Springs in Sweden and Finland. And it kind of draws us all together under the Lesjöfors brand. And I think, the Lesjöfors brand is quite a strong name in the spring industry. So for us locally, it was a really good move. And it also means we kind of have more affiliation with our colleagues in Scandinavia.
Absolutely. And what will that actually mean for your new factories in Cornwall? Is it investment? Will there be new job opportunities created?
So we've been really lucky, actually. Since Lesjöfors bought us in 2007, they've been really good at investing in us in Cornwall. I think they've kind of seen an opportunity where we were in quite a small factory back then. And since then, we grew that factory. Then we relocated to another factory. We put an extension on that factory, and we realised we'd run out of space again. So we then bought another factory. So we're now based at 2 sites in Cornwall. And they've really supported us all the way through. They've invested millions in us in new equipment. And I think they've seen a real opportunity to create efficient manufacturing for heavy springs. And we've got further investments coming in this year, about another £1 million being invested this year in more coiling machinery, grinding machinery, heat treatment. So they're really backing us, and it's fantastic because we've got ambitious growth kind of goals that we want to achieve, and to have that sort of backing financially just means that we can really facilitate what we want to achieve.
No, fantastic news. And Cornwall is synonymous with tourism. What does the manufacturing landscape look like in the region?
If you come to Cornwall, obviously you don't necessarily get hit initially by the fact that it may be a big manufacturing area. It's not like sort of maybe going to the Midlands, but there's over 1,000 manufacturing companies in Cornwall, and a lot of them are a little bit hidden away, doing some really high tech stuff, and it's really interesting actually when you get involved in local companies. I'm part of the Cornwall Manufacturing Group, so we come together on a regular basis and kind of look at how we can promote manufacturing in Cornwall and how we can kind of make the landscape better for ourselves and do a bit of lobbying with government. And it's really vibrant, and it's so, it's higher earning. There's better kind of value added, I would say, in manufacturing than maybe in places like tourism. We tend to pay a little bit better. And we find in Cornwall that when people join us and they've got a lot of potential, they stay. We have very, very low turnover of staff because they come in, they realise that the opportunities are there, the company's growing, there's good money to be made, and they stay with us. So Cornwall is really it's a good place to be a manufacturing company, I think, and also the lifestyle down here is very nice as well.
Absolutely. And back to Lesjöfors, are there any case studies, projects that you can share with us to help illustrate to our listeners what you actually do?
So I think probably the biggest example, and one of the biggest things that we do, is aftermarket suspension springs. So this is a big part of our business down in Cornwall. Actually, we have one factory that's almost dedicated entirely to this. And if, for example, you were to have an MOT failure in your car because one of your springs broke, chances are that the replacement spring that you put in your car is made by us down in Cornwall. We have a big market share of this product, and it's a real growth market. It's something that we're selling throughout the UK, throughout Germany, throughout Scandinavia, and chances are, that you will probably have a Lesjöfors spring in your car if you've ever had a spring break and had to replace it. So that's the biggest part of probably what we do.
Yeah, that's interesting. If we look at the market for heavy springs, what type of applications are we likely to see? Clearly, automotive's a big one. You've mentioned a good one there, but where is the market? Where would your springs typically go, and what are your new applications and your growth opportunities, I guess?
So, I mean, heavy springs are everywhere. I mean, springs are everywhere. They really are. You can't help but find a spring in your house or wherever you are. But for heavy springs, we're very heavily into the energy market, oil and gas. As I said, the motor industry. Some agriculture is quite large at the moment, and I can see, with the sort of political landscape as it is at the moment, I can see these kind of markets certainly domestically growing. Things like oil and gas, energy, agriculture. I think these are things that in the UK we're going to sort of have to grow and have to sustain. So, I mean, we've done some sort of interesting projects with the new West Ham Stadium up in London. We did some tension springs for their canopies that they had put up, their colour-coded canopies. So it's quite nice to sort of see your product in the public domain. And other, we've done silly little things like we've done display springs for Liberties in London for a Christmas display, so they could show off their handbags and their sunglasses. So really, the product is everywhere. It really is. It's very, very diverse, the markets that we're in.
Yeah, which is a good position to be in, I guess, because maybe if one falls, the other one rises. But yeah, so exciting times for Lesjöfors. What are the plans for this year and beyond, both here in the UK and export, I guess?
So the group company, Lesjöfors AB, is constantly looking for acquisitions around the world. So it's actually set itself a target for about 3 acquisitions a year, which is pretty heavy, and I think they'd like to do even more than that. So as a group, it's very ambitious in its growth. And for us in the UK, it's about kind of now amalgamating us as a new company, and then we're now on the development of forming this new heavy springs group, and really kind of looking for synergies that we've got within our group. Part of the core focus of Lesjöfors AB is to promote products into different markets and different types of product, and the heavy springs is one of the major areas that they want to push. So we see that there's huge potential, especially in Europe, for these type of products. And we're now going off to explore where we can develop those. We've recently just taken on a sales agent in Italy, and that's tapping into some really, really good new markets for us. So I think the future is looking very bright, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast and telling us your story and Lesjöfors story. Seems like an exciting time. So maybe one day we'll come and see you, especially maybe in the summer when it's a bit warmer down there.
Oh, you're very welcome to come and join us anytime. As I said, the summer is always a very nice time. So please do come down and see us and see what manufacturing in Cornwall's all about.
Stuart, wonderful to have Michael on the podcast.
No, brilliant, and what a great story. And it's nice to focus on a we cover a lot of companies in the Northwest and Yorkshire and the Midlands. It's great to focus on a company that's based in Cornwall.
Yep. If you want to join us on this podcast, please reach out to us, podcast@mtdmfg.com. It'd be wonderful to have you on, whether you're an SME or a large manufacturer. We'd love to have you on. We don't get time to cover all the news in this podcast, so go to mtdmfg.com or follow us on Twitter. So let's get back on with the news. The refreshed National Shipbuilding Strategy has been published by the government. Stu, what can you tell us about this one?
Yeah, as you said, the government has launched a refreshed strategy to revitalise the UK shipbuilding industry. During a visit to Camel Laird Shipyard on Merseyside, the Prime Minister and Defence Secretary set out how the new strategy would level up regions across the UK by supporting high-quality jobs, technology development and boosting investment. The £4 billion of government investment will support shipyards and suppliers across the UK and deliver a pipeline of more than 150 new naval and civil vessels over the next 30 years. The funding will reportedly sustain and create tens of thousands of jobs. So huge news, but for so many of the shipyards that need new work basically across England, across Scotland, and across the UK as a whole.
Sure, it's very timely indeed. The Ball Corporation have begun construction of a plant not far from our MTD HQ, actually, in Northamptonshire.
No, not at all. The American-owned firm's new factory in Kettering will be the UK's largest beverage packaging plant when it opens. Set for completion in January 2023, the site will occupy 56,000 square metres, with space to expand production at a later date. And this has really been driven by the growth in demand for aluminium cans as consumers seek alternatives to single-use plastic, which is good. Aluminium cans are currently the world's most widely recycled beverage packaging product, with a UK recycling rate of 82%. In its first year, the plant will be producing over 1 billion fully recyclable cans and create around about 200 jobs. And this site will be Ball's third can-making factory in the UK, joining established plants in Milton Keynes and Wakefield.
Yeah, and to finish off, we've had some food and beverage. We've had national shipbuilding, we've had automotive, we've had construction. We're going to finish on some aerospace here. Spirit Aerosystems, they've got some good news.
Yeah, absolutely. Spirit Aerosystems in Belfast, formerly Bombardier, has signed a deal for the supply of wings for a new multicopter designed for city travel. The East Belfast plant will make the wings for Airbus's City Airbus Next Gen aircraft. For people less familiar with the concept, City Bus Next Gen is an all-electric 4-seat vertical takeoff and landing multicopter featuring a wing. It has an 80 kilometre range and a cruise speed of 120 kilometres an hour, making it perfectly suited to zero-emission flight operations for a variety of applications in major cities. Bit of marketing speak there from the company. Spirit Aerosystems will be responsible for developing and manufacturing the wings. So yeah, very good news for Belfast, and can't wait to see this in operation.
Yeah, I'd like to see a photo of it actually. I haven't come across this story before, so it'd be I'd like to see it. Sounds an interesting aircraft. But Stuart, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Big thank you to Michael, our guest for today. But as always, an even bigger thank you goes to you at home for listening. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Great British Manufacturing Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. You can find us on Twitter using @MTDMFG and @Jefferson_MFG.